The Atlas V rocket had roared to life countless times before, carrying satellites, probes, and instruments into orbit with mechanical precision, yet when it stood gleaming upon its pad this time, framed by the pale light of dawn as though the heavens themselves were holding their breath, there was a weight in the air that could not be explained away as ordinary anticipation, for this mission was unlike any in its long lineage. Not a matter of logistics or science alone, but something veiled in secrecy, whispered of in corridors of power where the public would never tread, because its destination was Mars, not merely as an object of curiosity but as the heart of an enigma that had refused to die across decades of exploration, an enigma rooted in anomalies buried in data from Viking, Pathfinder, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance. Anomalies dismissed with clinical language but never erased from the minds of those who had seen them firsthand, energy spikes surging from beneath the crust, magnetic storms radiating upward in pulses too regular to be geological, and readings of subterranean warmth where no volcanic activity should exist, as though something alive, something ancient, slumbered deep within. And though official press releases spoke of mapping resources and scanning for water deposits, the payload that Atlas V carried was designed for something more dangerous. Instruments able to bore beneath the Martian silence, sensors tuned to frequencies no mission had dared to listen to, spectrometers capable of detecting power flows too subtle for natural origins, and so as the rocket's engines thundered, shaking the earth beneath the feet of those gathered to watch, its body surged into the sky like a spear hurled at the stars, casting shadows across oceans and continents, and billions looked upward with awe, unaware that they were not witnessing another routine chapter of exploration but the opening of a page written in a script older than history, for deep beneath Mars's blood-colored surface, where canyons cut deeper than oceans and plains stretched wider than continents, something stirred, something that had pulsed with quiet rhythms for eons, hidden yet not inert, patient yet not powerless, and as Atlas V shed its stages like a serpent sloughing its skin, carrying its secret payload across the gulf of blackness, those entrusted with the mission data began to feel the gravity of what they sought, because every file marked classified told the same story, bursts of unexplained radiation, harmonic frequencies echoing through the thin atmosphere, energy waves that seemed less like geological phenomena and more like signatures of intent, as though beneath the crust of Mars there was not emptiness but architecture, not silence but storage, not death but dormancy. And as the spacecraft drew nearer, Mars swelling in their windows like a great scarlet eye against the void, the instruments began to quiver, registering faint but undeniable pulses rising from below the planet's scarred skin, pulses that matched no star, no solar wind, no known pattern of physics, but instead aligned with rhythms too structured, too deliberate, as though the planet itself were a drumbeat of something waiting to be heard. And when the first readings were transmitted back to Earth, silence gripped the control rooms, for what they displayed was power. Power emanating from miles beneath the surface, growing stronger the closer they approached, power that spiked in synchrony with the orbit of the probe, as though responding to their arrival, acknowledging their presence, and those who stared at the numbers felt their veins chill, because they understood that energy is never idle, that something beneath Mars was not simply radiating but reaching, and though the official mission logs would later disguise these discoveries in the language of anomalies and errors, those who saw the raw streams knew that humanity had stumbled not upon a barren world but upon a reservoir of forces too vast to comprehend, a hidden current flowing through the bones of a planet, ancient and patient, waiting for the day when someone would dare to uncover it. And now Atlas V had become that trespasser, its instruments burrowing into silence, peeling away layers of dust and time, revealing whispers of a truth that no one had been prepared to confront. That Mars was not just a world but a vault, and inside its crimson vault pulsed an energy that could either light the future of mankind or drown it in mysteries darker than the void itself. Inside its crimson vault pulsed an energy that could either light the future of mankind or drown it in mysteries darker than the void itself. And from that moment forward the mission ceased to be a matter of mere exploration and instead became a descent into something vast, unknown, and possibly sentient. For as the Atlas V probe circled in low orbit above the dust-stained canyons of Mars, its payload began releasing a stream of scans, each one drilling deeper through crust and mantle, and what returned was not the random static of rocks but a resonance, tones rising and falling like echoes of a voice that had been speaking for millennia, too faint for ordinary ears, too alien for any human language, yet structured with a precision no chaos could mimic. And the scientists who monitored the feeds felt the stirrings of dread because the patterns mirrored algorithms. Recursive loops building upon themselves, like code woven into the marrow of the planet, code that pulsed with a cadence uncannily similar to the neural rhythms of a brain in deep slumber. And the deeper the instruments probed, the more undeniable the truth became. Mars was not silent. Mars was humming. Mars was answering. And though the public broadcasts continued to show clean graphs of topography and resource maps, behind locked doors the classified channels erupted in a frenzy of analysis. Me voices insisting it was an ancient reactor buried in the mantle, others whispering of machines so old that time itself had eroded their makers. But a few, the quiet few who trembled while running their hands through their hair under flickering lab lights, dared to mutter that what they were seeing was not machinery at all but metabolism, that the planet was alive. Not alive as in trees or microbes, but alive as in aware. Conscious, a being vast enough to wear a world as its shell, and as Atlas. V deployed its subsurface resonance modules over the Valles Marineris Canyon system, beams of invisible energy dove downward, bouncing off striated layers of basalt and dust, only to return with anomalies no geological formation could account for, geometric voids shaped like chambers, corridors twisting at right angles, domes hidden beneath a crust of frozen regolith, and most terrifying of all, power surges that grew stronger whenever the probe's orbit aligned with certain coordinates, surges so precise they formed a grid, a lattice sprawling beneath the southern hemisphere as though some hidden architecture had been sleeping beneath the sands all along, waiting for someone to shine a light. And when the feeds arrived at mission control, silence once more fell across the teams, because the energy signatures were not random. They were transmitting, their frequencies modulating as if in dialogue. Each spike matching the probe's scans in eerie synchrony, as though Mars was not merely being observed but was observing back, returning the gaze with a patience forged in eons. And the senior director of the classified wing, a man whose hands had steadied through dozens of launches, found his palms sweating as he leaned closer to the monitor, whispering words that no one wished to hear. "It knows we are here." And with those words the mission crossed a threshold that no return could undo, because the more they listened the more the pulses began to arrange themselves into repeating cycles, harmonics weaving together in chords that suggested design, memory, and intent. And the Atlas V probe, once a vessel of human triumph, became a trespasser knocking at the door of something older than humanity itself, its signals reverberating through chambers untouched by sunlight for billions of years, chambers that now began to stir, to awaken. As though a slumbering beast had heard its name whispered across the cosmos, and far below the dust storms and rust-colored plains of Mars the pulses quickened, no longer background noise but a rhythm accelerating, like a heart roused from sleep, and every man and woman in the control rooms knew without speaking that what they had uncovered was not a passive anomaly but a presence, one that had waited through the collapse of stars and the rise of civilizations, and now, because of a rocket that dared to pierce its silence, that presence was aware again. And its awareness was growing with every orbit, with every scan, with every breathless human eye fixed upon it, until the question no longer was whether life existed beneath Mars but whether humanity was ready to face what had just begun to awaken.